just want to say the idea in Argentina that the Jehovah's Witness governing bodies come up with, that they're going to develop as part of a facility, a shopping centre, I don't know how true it is, but I wouldn't believe it not to be true. There is a church in Singapore called the New Creation Church, headed up by a terrific preacher by the name of Joseph Prince, who does put Christ first and preaches the grace of God above all else. They built a complex called the Star Vista. They built it over the top of a railway line in Singapore with a 5,000-seat auditorium, and it was a complete shopping centre. Now, it was a revolutionary idea in terms of a church organisation doing such a thing, but the Jehovah's Witness proposal, if it's true in Argentina, Buenos Aires, of a shopping complex being part of their facility, I don't know the full details, or possibly just a shopping centre on its own, is not the first time a religious organisation has come up with this concept. Now, you think about it for a minute. If you build a kingdom hall, you have a facility, but it's more or less, what would you say, a passive form of income, an idle income. It only operates on donations. And most of the time it sits there idle. If you build a shopping centre as part of a facility, Jehovah's Witness facility, right? It's not idle. It's got a constant turnover. It's got all the rent and lease incomes that come in. It's a multi-million-dollar income. It leaves kingdom halls behind by the millions of dollars. Now, the Jehovah's Witnesses have messed up the Bible, right? They've got it wrong. They don't want to fix it at this point. They're not going to say we're sorry for the mistakes we've made. We'd sooner rather blame you, people that are in our organisation, for believing things that you shouldn't have, even though we told you to. We'd sooner blame you. We're not going to admit that we've got it wrong. We're not going to apologise. And we know that you're getting a little bit angry with us. There's still millions of you that are ignorant of our devices. You just don't realise that we're a cult. You're not sure. Oh, this organisation, honestly, you're not sure. You don't do your study. You can't work out the reality of what this really is, which is a property development organisation run under the guise of a religion. Now, they've got the religion wrong. Theologically, they've got their religion wrong, okay? Blood transfusions, people dying from not having them. The two-witness rule and the millions and millions of dollars they've had to pay out for their stubbornness towards that. Their Bible prophecies, which have gone wrong. Here's my missus. Mixie, there's been an accident down the road, a pretty bad one, and I think the traffic's backed right up into town, so you might not get in. Yeah. Yeah, but you can come across the Ridgeway, but I think it's going to get you from the other side as well.
Okay. So,
yeah. Actually, if you come along Henry Parry Drive, you might be able to cut across from the private hospital and come over that hill. But don't come through Gosford, whatever you do.
Okay, so I'll go Springfield?
Yeah, that way. Yeah, right across to the roundabout at the bottom of the hospital there.
Okay,
If it looks like it's blocked, turn in at the shopping centre and come up past the post office in Gosford the back way. You know that street between the main street and the Henry Parry Drive.
Okay, I'll send that one every day.
Okay, man.
Okay,
I'll see you soon.
okay, all right.
Bye, man. That's live. I mean, if you go live, you get these things happen. My wife comes before this, so she's all sorted. There's been a very bad accident down the road, really bad, and the traffic's banked up as the police forensics sort out what happened. Looks like a car's veered onto the wrong side of the road, and there's been a 3-car head-on. So if the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society has decided that we're going to make a hell of a lot more money out of building shopping centres and things like that, then it's going to come down to the followers of the movement to say, well, this is of God or it is not. Now, if Armageddon's just around the corner as they teach, then why are they proposing to build a shopping centre as part of a facility in Argentina? Why would they be doing that? This is how ignorant the Jehovah's Witness people are. You watch the car ministry videos where they walk off. They're not doing evangelism work. They're promoting the propaganda of the Jehovah's Witness movement. They're not interested in toing, throwing about Bible stuff and that. I can remember when we used to go out, you'd be out there for hours and you'd be talking to people. You'd get clipped across the ear, you'd get things thrown at you, but you wouldn't just walk off. You'd offer them a cup of tea or whatever, because we used to have a little cup of tea thing. Sometimes they'd come up and just kick that over, but that's all part of it. If you put yourself out in the public as a representative of theology, then you can't just walk off because it suits you. That is just, if I was in a council, a community council, and I saw that kind of video going on, I'd go down and I'd bar them off. You're not doing anything constructive. You're just sharing propaganda of your organisation. Now, today's talk, or this live that I'm doing while the wife's on her way home, is about the proposed facility signed off by the Jehovah's Witnesses governing body, which will have, as part of its development, a shopping centre inclusive of that facility. So it seems to me the passive income that the Jehovah's Witnesses governing body were getting from their kingdom halls has been thrown out the window, and they're going, let's have an active income. We'll build shopping centres. This is how it seems to be to me. We'll build shopping centres. We'll get the money from the leases. The establishment or the property will be worth millions. So I think that the governing body is starting to say, look, we're coming undone. Our religion, they know their religion's wrong. They're not going to make out they know it's wrong, but they know it's wrong. They know it's all lies and deceit. And they're just winging it for as long as they can, and they're doing a pretty good job of it in terms of the ignorant that are silly enough to believe them. For the ones that are waking up, the anger and the resentment and the feeling of like, we've got to get this out, is just accumulating and multiplying at such a speed that I believe that the business side of this organization's gone, why just build silly little kingdom halls? Why would we waste our time doing that now? They sit there most of the week. You got these poor people coming in that are dribbling in a little bit of money each week. Let's start to transition. And when we do a kingdom hall, we'll do it in such a way that we can also include in the facility a shopping centre. That's part of a proposal of the headquarters of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Publishing Society that is being proposed in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Now, you need to go to Kim and Mikey's channel. They've been having a break, but Kim's broken the break in a 3-minute video to get this news out. Now, can you see the business side of this organisation is more important than the religious side? Now, it's easy to see why. They're not interested in getting their theology right. You can take 2 minutes on Google or any internet stream and find any answer that you need for the Bible in 101 form, in a foundation form. They are persisting. They are stubborn. They are not going to put their theology right. So while they're winging it as a religious organisation, and they're a cult, and the reason why they're a cult is because they're not willing to put their theology right. They're just harming people. They're theologically, you may have never heard this statement before, they're theologically abusing people. There's a new one for you all. They're theologically abusing people. Now, evidence of this is when you watch the car ministry videos from the Christian Comedy Channel, from the XJ Jub channel, from Jude 3, from Down with the Tower. These people are walking off. They're not willing to answer any Bible questions. That is theological abuse. They're going out there, making out they've got the intent to answer Bible questions when they've got no intent at all to do that whatsoever. That, right, and let's get it right, is theological abuse, because they're going out there representing a theology, but they're not doing that in any way whatsoever at all. So if somebody comes up to you and says, could you please tell me, is Jesus the Son of God and all this, and they go, look at jw.org, excuse me, it's theological abuse, because when you go to jw.org, they're not giving you an honest answer about who Jesus really is anyway. The governing body know, and I'm not, you can just tell, they know that they're theologically in trouble. Their theology is so wrong. This is why there's child sexual abuse and all sorts of behind the scenes misbehavior that's not reflective of Christian behavior going on. Because religion, and this is where they've messed it up, is not something that you should play with. It's not something you should mess with. We talk about sexual abuse. We talk about physical abuse. Now we've got to get down to the meat and potatoes with the Jehovah's Witnesses and start talking about theological abuse. They are theologically abusing the minds of their followers. They're deceiving the people that are following them. And that is one of the most powerful forms of abuse there is. When you're telling people something about God, their creator, that isn't true, isn't that a severe and savage form of abuse? Why is that being overlooked? Why? And thank God for Russia. They didn't let this one slip under their guard. Why is theological abuse being overlooked? I don't think it is being overlooked in the big picture. I think the Australian Royal Commission, Russia, Denmark, the Netherlands, and all these other people are seeing that the theological abuse, its fruit is the child abuse, is the two-witness rule, is the blood doctrine, is, all this stuff about wives having to stay with their abusive husbands and all this stuff and nonsense. It's not Christianity. Shunning. I can't comprehend shunning. Shunning is not something isolated to the Jehovah's Witnesses, but they take it to a whole new realm. They'll just cut you off like you never even existed. And what a lot of people don't realize is behind shunning is the thought that you have to put Jehovah first. Anything that in any way makes a person think that they have to put Jehovah first will cause them to shun people if that person that they're shunning isn't complying to organizational stipulations. And the Jehovah's Witnesses are notorious for it. If you start a question or, it's so bad that if you've got a husband that's questioning the organization and the wife will want to stay with that organization will go straight to work on the wife to keep her in at the expense of her marriage, to the point where if it comes to it, she'll choose the organization over her marriage and vice versa be it the case. That's how theologically abusive this Jehovah's Witnessism cult is. Now, how do you safeguard against that? Well, they've got the Shepherd's Book and all this other stuff. But if you go through that manual, it's really not protecting. They're not protecting anyone from the blood doctrine. They're not protecting anyone from the shunning. They're not protecting anyone from the two-witness rule. They've made it a little bit less foggy, but it's still not, get on the phone to the police, as it were, straight away. And all this other cult stuff is theological abuse. Now, theological abuse is a dangerous form of abuse because it threads its way into, it leads out into, and encourages all other forms of abuse. Because if in your conscience you believe that you've deceived yourself in believing that you're serving Jehovah in the right way, but you're not, it's no different to the Muslims who believe that you can run into a church with a grenade and just blow everybody up. They think what they're doing is right for their God. It's like, I'm not sure if it was a religious matter in New Zealand, but that man that went in and shot those Muslims in the mosque, that's no good. That's no good. But he thought what he was doing was right. He thought he was going to make a difference. He didn't make a difference. What difference did he make? None. What difference are the Jehovah's Witnesses making in the communities? Absolutely none. 9 out of 10 cart witnessing videos where somebody approaches the Jehovah's Witnesses as a cart shows the failure, the ignorance, and the lack of theological strength of the Jehovah's Witnesses. How embarrassing would you be if you were one of these circuit overseers and you saw your people running off on a YouTube video with a cart? Honestly, it's like the devil running off with his lies. We've got to get out of here because we can't manage simple Bible questions. Again, the Christian Comedy Channel, XJW Stewart, you've got Jude 3, and all these other people that are approaching the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they are just not coping. They're falling onto the police. Now, why ring the police if you won't sing the national anthem, if you won't salute the flag, if you're a conscientious objector? If you're a conscientious objector and you won't go to war for your nation, what right do you think you've got to use government facilities like the police? You've turned your back on all that, but when now you can't answer a theological question or a watchtower question because you might be proving to yourself that you're wrong, you've got to call the police. That is theological abuse. And believe it, theological abuse is probably, it's a passive form of abuse, but it's a very aggressive form on the inside of the person. 60%, I'm going to say this, 60% of people that try and find their way out of theological abuse never ever come back to their true, sane self. It might be more, I don't think it's less, but so many people that get caught up in these cults and commit themselves to these cults and allow their faithfulness and their loyalty to blind them, their faithfulness and loyalty towards the organization to blind them from being able to exercise their senses enough to follow their compass, their moral compass, which says to them, something's wrong, something's wrong. When you start to deny yourself of that privilege within your senses of being able to trace along what's right and what's wrong, that's when you become chronically deceived. And when you become chronically deceived, they're starting to use chronic addictions and all this stuff. They're calling it a disease. It's not a disease. It's an addiction. An addiction is not, and I'm sorry if I'm offending anybody, it's not a disease. It's something you've got to work your way out of, and it's painful and it's hard. Now, religion becomes the same sort of chronic disease, but it's on a different plane. It's on a higher plane because you're believing that you're dealing with your creator. And this is why people get so hedged in. They're now putting all their eggs into the one basket, and they're relying on people, right? And that's fair to an extent, to help them to understand what God wants and what God doesn't want. What I've found with the Jehovah's Witnesses is they don't know what God wants. They don't even know who Jesus is. Fancy standing there and saying Jesus is Michael the Archangel in front of professional scholars and theologists and people that have studied the thing right and saying it in a way that they believe it's true. That is chronic deception. That is a deception that these people may never ever find themselves or their way out of. It's like a dog that's broken its leg and it's never going to heal right. That's how dangerous and destructive this stuff is. And we see, you see these people in the XJW community and their passion is exemplary. It's because they've been so badly hurt and they've woken up and they're going, I don't want this to happen to anybody else. I know what's happened to me. I know the harm it's caused to me. I know the damage it's done to me. Deep inside my heart, I allowed myself to deceive myself by trusting my loyalty and faithfulness in something that was a lie. It's not a joke. This is why they commit suicide. They've betrayed themselves. When your loyalty and your faithfulness is given into something that's wrong, and you realize you could tilt either way. You could tilt towards healing or you could tilt towards ending. We're seeing both sides. There's reports on both sides. Religious theological abuse, right, is something that we don't hear a lot of, but religious theological abuse is the most damaging form of abuse because it's hidden under the guise of something that's supposed to be good. It's hidden under the guise of something that's supposed to be good and it's not good. Now, behind me, my wife's gotten home from work and I've got to put her first because I've only got one go at this and I want to get it right. But I want you to consider theological abuse and how dangerous it is. And also consider that the governing body's given up on the building simple little kingdom halls in Argentina, Buenos Aires. Watch Kim's latest video on the Watchtower's proposal to develop a facility with a shopping centre. That'll open your eyes. This is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia. Bye for now.